Today with my colleague Michael, we're going to talk through open banking, the global phenomenon that is. We're going to give a little bit of a taste of global open banking, where it is today, where we think it's going to go, and hopefully with a little bit of audience participation as well. Michael?
Absolutely. So before we get into kind of where global open banking is going, we're going to take a view on where open banking has come from. So back in 2018, the first market to go live was the UK, shortly followed by the EU, but typically the UK was the first one there. And it was forced there by regulation, and the banks were forced to actually open up their open banking, their data access to the end users. Where we stand today in 2021 is we have over 40 markets in the world that have some form of open banking live, and we'll talk you through what that looks like in a moment.
Brilliant. And that's quite something, right? Over 40 markets, and we're going to show a map of where we see that really progressing through. So, the first key question, what is open banking? Right, it's one of these terms that I think generates a huge amount of SEO, but what do we actually mean by open banking? So I like to think of it within a structure. Open banking is a concept, but also I think thanks to some of the standards agencies, it's also regulations. So how do we think about this? We think about concepts and open banking standards as a spectrum. I understand open banking within that spectrum as a particular concept. So let's take it to its extreme. In terms of open banking, you can move to open finance, more products, mortgages, insurance, but actually there's a movement in the economy towards open data. Here we're talking about everything from telephone bills through to just about everything you interact with. So open banking as a concept sits within this broader area of opening up data to consumers. But open banking is also a standard, it's a regulation. In the UK, the Open Banking Implementation Entity created standards that really define this concept into something that people can build and integrate. We go all the way through to API standards, and then ultimately those banking interfaces that if you hang around, you can see examples of the payments here.
And of course, where do those standards take us? They take us to a set of rules that all banks must follow. And here we have a lot of jargon, a lot of stuff that is made up, and these are the standards that all banks have to follow. But ultimately within this, we have three participants. We've got the account holding PSP, i.e. typically a bank. We've got the end user, people who actually have the accounts, and we've got the third-party provider where that data is going. So if anyone wants to take a quick guess on what any of these mean, if someone can get all of them, there's a prize I'm sure we can dig out somewhere, but yeah. And Ciaran?
Yeah, come on, audience participation. Is anyone willing to get one of those nice and early? Please. AISP. AIS. Can we go even closer? Account Information Services Provider. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much. Anyone want to take on some of the more exotic terms up here? Let's not be shy. Oh. That is a brilliant one. I'm going to struggle to go through it. So ASPSP, Account Services Payment Services Provider, exactly.
And of course, that's typically a bank, or it's anyone sitting on top of a bank. You know, any challenger that we see currently, any wallet provider that issues a payment account on top.
So a very complicated way of talking about banks, basically. And I think that's one of the challenges and what we were trying to explain today is how this all fits together. So come on, there's some other great terms up there. We'll take one or two more. I'm disappointed at the trustee group, I'm not going to lie. Would anyone?
It's like pulling teeth.
It is, come on, don't leave us hanging up here. Somebody, come on. Oh, here we go.
Very good, Jeremy, very good. Top marks.
Top marks, Jeremy, wonderful. So look, this is complicated, right? So let's run through a couple. Michael, do you want to give us one or two?
No.
Okay. So my favourite at the moment, VRP, variable recurring payments, huge topic in the UK particularly. Come on, Michael, I'm sure you can give us one.
So you've got the EBA, the European Banking Authority, which pretty much governs most of this, or at least put it in place You've got SCA, which is Secure Customer Authentication. I'm cheating because I wrote all this, so I know what they all mean, but yeah, this is what it is. But the point is, it's difficult, right? And it's challenging for banks.
Extremely challenging for banks, extremely challenging for those in the payment sector, and we haven't even spoken about merchants yet.
So we'll get there. Don't worry. So despite all of that challenging jargon that we had there, effectively open banking in my mind is very simple. It's read access and it's write access. And what do I mean by that? Read access is AIS, so very much data, and obviously sending that data to different places, and really the bank's giving up the ownership of that data to their account holder. And the account holder has freedoms then of where that information goes and what they do with that data. And obviously we've seen lots of use cases in the market around that. We've got aggregators that obviously give you one money dashboard around all of your accounts, or you've got mortgages that are now using this to make your application easier. On the write access side, obviously we have payments, which is typically the use case. This is very much writing, actually putting information into the bank, and payment initiation is the clear kind of rationale for this.
And what do you think, Michael? Are there other areas that write access could be applied to?
I think it can be extended possibly to kind of standing orders, and in fact it is there for standing orders or variable recurring payments, and as we see the migration of direct debits to VRP, I think we're going to see that much more in the future. There's a question, of course, of whether or not banks will allow you to update data, the actual hardcore data that they own, but I mean, we'll see how that goes.
So this is really interesting. So if you want to simplify how you think about open banking, we really recommend this structure: read access, write access. So, Michael, simple question: where is open banking really taking off?
Everywhere. So, I mean, this map, and forgive me for the colours, obviously we're trustly branded colours here, but we are still in a world where the bright green is the UK and Europe, and that is the only regions in the world where we have regulation that governs read and write access. There is nowhere else in the world that offers that, nowhere whatsoever. Countries are moving there, but there's nowhere that does it as a standard. What we then have is we have a number of countries in the, Australia colour is the easiest one to say, where we have regulation-driven kind of adoption. And what we're seeing with that is around it's developing, but it's only read access, or it's only certain parts of read access, so we're not quite there. And with Australia, obviously you've got CDR, which is very, very well established and is moving towards write access, but it's not there yet. And then we have the light grey colours, which are kind of South Africa, Argentina, the US, and I think the US is the biggest market here. And what we're seeing in the US is market-driven adoption. So this is where there's no regulation whatsoever, but banks are having to adopt it because the market is demanding it, and they're demanding it because of what they're seeing in the UK and the EU.
And Michael, just on that, so it seems to me that really read access first and then write access. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think banks, they don't want to give anything up. They don't want to lose their income. They don't want to, forgive me if there's any banks here, but you don't. No banks are here. They can't travel because of COVID. It's fine. But no, they don't want to give anything up, without understanding how to monetize it first. And of course, read access tends to come from regulation, while write access comes from an opportunity to monetize.
Brilliant.
So then, Ciaran, why does this matter? And why does it matter for consumers?
Well, it matters a lot. So we think it comes down to three main areas where it matters for consumers. So the first one being control. Control is quite a broad term. If we think about the read access area, giving customers control of their financial data is critical. But also from a payments perspective, right? We know that 64% of customers in Europe, they want to pay with debit. Debit gives them control over their finances, and we believe that open banking is the way to deliver a better debit payment method.
But Ciaran, why don't I just use my debit card?
Lots of reasons. Firstly, if you're me, you've probably lost it, or it's expired. Debit cards are a great solution at a certain point in time, but we've now moved beyond. We can do immediate, instant settling payments that we're going to talk about in a second. And from a customer perspective, I have that security and control, as we say, of being able to say that I have authenticated that payment. So there's a really important difference here. And choice, of course, different providers, different ways of doing things. Innovation, the really kind of unknown area here, the area that no one can really, should we say, predict, but we know that if we allow these APIs in the read and the write space to develop, we will see new products coming to market. So it's pretty critical.
I'll ask you again. Well, I mean, why does it matter for merchants, Ciaran? I mean,
Well, there's plenty of merchants, I guess, who can attest to this. Again, choice in providers, right? You asked the question about debit card. We think more solutions allow better solutions, and more competition allows us to hit the second point, reduce costs. So in terms of an open banking experience to write, i.e. make payments, driving down cost with authenticated payments is a really key thing for our merchants.
and I was going to say, I mean, looping this back in, I mean, you've got the global footprint, the global acceleration of open banking, or in some form. And of course, you've got merchants that operate on a global level now. The internet has actually opened up all barriers around the world, obviously shipping, to some degree, but you do have kind of merchants that don't rely on shipping. And what we're seeing is a need for one provider that can do everywhere that has open banking, and actually do that full payment train.
And that is exactly where Chussie fits in.
It's almost like we made this up.
It's almost like we wrote this, yeah, exactly. So look, where does Chussie fit in from a merchant or from a payment services provider perspective?
Quite simply, we've got a vision that open banking, or using the open banking rails, we want to support any merchant, every consumer, with instant settlement, both sides, in all markets where open banking is, with one API. And that's where we're heading.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, everyone. So that was our short introduction into open banking. Hopefully it gives you a structure about how we think about open banking and where we think the future's moving. And we're really excited to take you on this journey with us. Thank you.